Hello and welcome to Indulge podcast. This is your host Praveen, and today we have with us businesswoman, entrepreneur, celebrity chef Pooja Dhingra. Welcome.
Hi Praveen.
I've been wanting to ask you this question personally. What do you make of the title Macaron Queen of India?
You know what? When it first started, maybe 8 years ago, I was like, oh, this is a little. But then, someone's calling you a queen, you just accept it and you'll be happy with it. So I started with my love for macaroons, and to be recognized for it, I think it's a big victory. So I enjoy it, yes.
And your love for macaron,
Yeah.
it formulated into something
Yeah.
big after you had something at Pierre Hermes.
Yes.
Passion fruit macaron, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, you've done your research. Amazing.
Yes. Please tell me
Yeah.
everything.
So I studied pastry in Paris. I was at Cordon Bleu, and that's when I ate my first macaroon, which was from a chef called Pierre Hermé, and it was a passion fruit macaroon. And I ate it, and it was like love at first bite because it was sweet and savory and crunchy, and I love textures, and it was like this perfect blend of everything that I'd never tasted before. And the first question was like, why am I at 21 having this for the first time? Why have I not had it before? Why is it not available in India? Is it because ingredients are not there? Is it because it's too expensive? Is it because people won't like it? So then I said, okay, I'm going to come back, and then this is going to be what I do.
And then you got the man himself to write your foreword for your book.
I did, yeah.
Tell us about that.
I feel like that was my life comes full circle moment. I was in Paris with the French government on a trip, on an official trip. And through that trip and that, that program, it was a youth program that the Indo-French embassies, like they came together and they set it up. And we were in Paris and they said, okay, let's meet Mr. Pierre Hermé. And I was like a little excited little girl. I was like, I can't believe I'm going to meet my hero. And then I did meet him, and he was amazing. He was so charming, and he was very kind, and it was like surreal. There was that moment that I was standing at that macaroon fridge with him, and he was pulling out the passion fruit macaroon. So that was really special. And so then we kept in touch, and then like eggless baking is very big in India, and I make eggless macaroons. So he had heard about that, and he asked me, he's like, I'm trying to make vegan macaroons. How do I, can you help me? And I was like, oh my God, my hero is asking me for, it's like really like for anyone, it was like, especially for me, it was great. And then when I wrote the book, I reached out and asked if he would do it, and he was very kind, and it's now part of the book.
But your love for Parisian style pastries, did it begin early in your life? Because you started baking quite early with your aunt.
I did. I think I was 6 when I made my first tray of brownies. And so I love the whole process of baking. I love the joy, like today when I tell anybody I'm a pastry chef, I see this big smile on their face because you're so connected to celebration and love and joy, and that's what dessert does. But I grew up baking the desserts that we all knew, like brownies, cheesecakes, chocolate mousse. That was like donuts. That was the
extent
of it.
Yeah.
And then I moved to Switzerland, and then when I moved to Paris, that's when it was like, wow. The first day in class, I remember going through my book and seeing all these different things like madeleine, opera cake, and this and that, and just being like, what are these things? I had like no idea. And obviously the internet wasn't what it is, like the social media wasn't what it is today, right? When I was in culinary school, there was no Instagram. Facebook had just about started. So, there was no like people sharing everything. Today, I know what's happening in any part of the world. But
True.
At that point, I had to be in Paris for me to experience it.
And that's something I've wanted to ask as well. So with Instagram basically becoming such a big sensation among people, so a home chef can make a recipe and share it, and the world is like, that's amazing, we'd like to try it, and then the whole trend begins. So how do you as a chef look at it, and as a businesswoman as well?
I think I very early on recognized the power of social media. I think it was my first week in my kitchen when I came back, and I had a blog and I had Facebook. There was no Instagram then, there was no WhatsApp then. So I was baking, and I took a picture of a cake and I went and put it up on Facebook saying, oh, I'm going to bake this cake today. And suddenly I saw people like messaging me and saying, like my brother's friend from school saying, oh, I would love to buy this cake. And I was like, wow, that was kind of easy, you know. And I feel that food is so visual, and if I see a picture of something online, I feel like, oh, I want to really want to eat this. So I think I understood that. I understood the power of storytelling, and I understood the power of community building very early through my blog and through Facebook. And I think through the years over Instagram, and I've been on Instagram for 13 years, through these 13 years, I've really used that. And I think it's a great tool for anybody who's starting a business. You can show insights of your business. You can show what, what, why you do what you do. You know, not just like, oh, I'm a bakery and I sell this cake. Why do you sell this cake? Why specifically this kind? You know, what is your backstory? So I think that social media gives you that power.
And when you began that in 2010,
Yeah.
you had an old iPhone with you.
I
You
had
an
my, yes, I had
and an iPod.
yes.
And the picture of which you shared, I think, a few years ago. This is how I started, and this iPhone was basically used to take pictures of everything, and so, and
Exactly.
then just boomed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because then when I did meet Tim Cook last year in April,
Yeah.
and I showed him, I pulled it out. I should have got signed. I really feel like I missed an opportunity. But he came to our kitchen, and I had the iPhone and I had the iPod, and we took this picture. And then when he posted a picture of it on his Twitter, like all the Apple, you know, like fans went crazy because they thought, they were like, what is this? Is this like the secret 15? Is this something new?
Yeah,
And I was
yeah.
like, I had to like post a picture of my phone saying, guys, this is the first one that was there. I just wanted to show it to him. This is not something new that he's using, you know.
Had you got him to sign it, it would have become a novelty item
I
at the moment.
know. Well, I hope there'll be another opportunity in my lifetime. So let's see.
I'm sure. I did see that picture, and I did see that his eyes are just blown up seeing the macarons that you had had. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what did he say? What did he say? What did he try that day?
He tried a lot. He was with us for about 45 minutes. And I think it was a very humbling spiritual experience. I don't think there are any words to describe what that felt like. He was present, he was there, he asked questions, he tasted everything, he gave feedback on everything. Whenever I asked him for advice or I asked him any questions, he, you know, was very generous with his answers. And I think that at someone at his level to, you know, still be as grounded and still be so connected to every person he meets, I think I learned a lot from him that day. Yeah.
That's true. And when people meet you, I mean, you do travel a lot, and as you said, this has been your fourth time coming to Chennai. So, do you draw parallels between the cuisines of your city, Mumbai, and Chennai, in general, or?
I mean, I love to just go without any expectations. I love to explore new, you know, whichever city I go to, I love to explore the city through its food and through its people. So that's, you know, what I love doing. I was in Jaipur recently, and you know, we went to the old city and we had a mawa kachori, and then Chef Tejasvi and I, we went back to her kitchen and we made an interpretation of that mawa kachori in the style of a French dessert. So I think that's really exciting, and I think that there are parallels that you can draw from wherever, right? Like I was in Japan and I had you know, a lot of matcha desserts, so I came back and made that matcha macaroon. Or I was in New York and it was all about cheesecake, so then how do you take a cheesecake and put in a macaroon? So I feel like travel for me really does open my sensibilities, my palate, and also makes me understand food and culture very differently.
And food is intertwined with culture and celebration.
Exactly.
And so when you travel and you take in these things, which culture basically was the most difficult for you to take in, interpret, and make your own version of it?
I don't think any of them have been very difficult. I think it's all been very exciting to see what element. I think the challenging one is always your the one that's closest to you, right? So I know when I was in Paris, I would see all these Japanese chefs who would you know, have these patisseries where it was all Japan inspired, and they would make like a green tea milfai and wasabi something. And I was 22, 23, and I came back and I said, okay, what can I do? So I went to like the local market close to our house, and I was like, you know, you see green chilies and you see chai and you see pan and you see all these things that you consume on a day-to-day basis, but do you see them ever in a Western dessert? At least 14, 15 years ago, it wasn't as done as it is today. So just taking those things and making a, you know, the first thing I ever made with my dad was chai. So how do you like make a chai flavored macaroon? And then how do you elevate it slightly? So there's like the lemongrass that we put in it, or I feel like chai goes very well with hazelnut. So we made like a little hazelnut praline for the center. We took pan and we made like a pan macaroon. We did a green chili and white chocolate macaroon. So I think the ones that are closest to home, because you have such a fixed perception of how you consume it, then to suddenly change it and change it for the audience as well, right? Because if at 14 years back when I told people, oh, this is a green chili macaroon, this is a pan macaroon, like, I don't know if I want that in my dessert, right? But then when you eat it and you try it, you're like, oh wow, this is actually really good.
Yeah, getting people to try something new of things that they know, that's the tricky part. So, this is something, speaking about social media, we've spoken about the positive things of it. But there's also a slight negative thing which we can't basically just take out of context. That's the dopamine fix. And there's a recent study which showed that people, the more they consume social media, the more they consume shorter version of social media, their concentration spans reduce with time as well. And as a chef, you're active on social media as well, so how do you perceive that? How do you think that we should tackle that?
Yeah, I feel that's a very good question, and I feel like it is and I did feel it maybe say 6-7 years ago, especially when suddenly there was a big surge in all of us, using it a lot more. Content was becoming very different. The concept of content creators came in. It wasn't just, oh, this is what I ate for lunch, right? Like there was actually the space was changing, and I did feel that I was spending a lot of time on it, and then. Luckily for me, I do also have a business to run and work to do, so it was becoming challenging to do both. So then I decided to include it in my calendar. So between every hour, so I do some work, and at the end of every hour, I would have a phone break for 5-7 minutes, and I look at it then, and then I'll put it back into my drawer, and then go about my day. So for me, I found that if I demarcated time and only did it for specific time amounts of time, that really helped. And then in COVID actually was when my phone usage became very less, because suddenly I was at home and I was like, for some time I don't want to interact with anybody. And the big change now, which also a lot of yoga coaches and people will kind of tell you this, and my yoga teacher told me, which is why I started doing it, is that half an hour after you wake up and half an hour before you go to bed, try not to look at your phone. I say try. It's not always easy. I'm not here like I've achieved this, but that's the attempt, that every time you're like, okay, I finish it, I put it aside, and then no screen time just before bed.
One more thing regarding online, your bond with Sonam Kapoor, and
I'm not
a lot
my
of
born. Oh, I thought you're born. I'm like,
your bond with Sonam Kapoor, and
yes.
talk us about,
Yeah.
tell us about your
So
friendship.
Sonam is a very dear friend. She, in fact, so I think there's a misconception. People think that we actually born at the same
No.
time together. But I've known her for about 10-12 years now. So ever since I started Love 15, she actually called me for the first time to order a cake for her sister. And that's how I got to know her. And slowly over time, she'd call me and she'd be like, I'm craving this, can you make that? And then we have a few common friends, so we started, meeting a lot more. And over time, it's just, developed into this beautiful friendship. And I learn a lot from her and her sister both. And yeah, it is.
What do you respond to when people say, "Are you born together?" You say, "Oh yeah," something like that, or
Are you born together?
yeah, because you did say some people do think that.
Yeah, no, I just, it's, I guess it's for me to just say, oh, that, I wasn't. And that it's actually, I owe a lot to Love 15. Everyone thinks that I grew up knowing everyone and doing everything, but actually I know everybody through my work, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I will always credit to Love 15 for bringing in my life, because ever since I started, it's, their customers first that became friends, and then that's the kind of like community that we build over time. So it's the work that always leads before anything else.
I want to ask the favorite food, which I shouldn't ask a chef, but I
See,
will.
I just want you all to know, I asked him about his favorite car and he told me that that's something that you should never ask an auto person. So now you're asking me, you're breaking that same rule and asking me that question.
Yes, because I'm a hypocrite.
What is the question? My favorite food?
Yes.
It's such a difficult question, but I'll tell you what. I judge this, I normally ask people if you've been outside of the country for 2 weeks and you land back home, what's the first thing that you eat? And I feel like that first thing that you eat always tells you what is like closest to them or what they miss the most.
Yeah.
For me, that's my mom's dal chawal. So every time I would be in university and I would come home, the first thing I would eat was dal chawal. So for me, that khichdi or dal khichdi or dal chawal is my comfort food. It's what I love the most.
One more question, because I wanted to ask this. MasterChef 8, your cameo in it, and you did something there. MasterChef Tamil. How was your experience there?
MasterChef Tamil.
Yes.
I loved it. I just in fact shot for it, so it's going to be out in a couple of months, I think. And I learned. I just love all the chefs and the food. And we made a. I hope I say this right.
Yes.
A 30-pal macaron.
There you go. You're correct.
Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it was amazing. So blending flavors and let's see.
Was
Please
that
watch.
the first time you tried it?
Yes.
Worked with Ratipal?
Yes.
And you made a macaron out of it?
Yes.
See, now you know why people call you the macaron queen of India. Anyway, thank you for
Thank
speaking
you
with us.
so much. Thank you for having me.
We'll meet you soon in another podcast. See ya.